She stumbled slightly as he moved away. "But you like me." He stopped walking. His shoulders straightened as he turned back toward her. "That's the problem. I like you too much. You and I aren't suited. There's no future in this, and I won't take your innocence." She opened her mouth to protest, but the expression in his eyes stopped her. "Please go, Becky. There's only so much temptation I can take." She turned and ran, her cheeks flaming, tears running down her face. Not of hurt, but of frustration. How could he think they didn't have a future together? What gave him the right to make that decision for her? Didn't her opinion count? She mounted Ireland as quickly as she could and rode back to their camp. Dismounting, she hobbled the horse before walking slowly back toward their wagon. She saw Joanna and Eva laughing with their ma over by the fire. Desperate to avoid them, she moved silently toward her tent. She didn't want anyone witnessing her tears. She rarely cried, so they would be concerned. Her parents already had reservations about Captain Jones. She wasn't going to add any fuel to that fire. She reached the tent without being seen. Lying down and pulling the covers over her fully dressed body, she pretended to be asleep when Joanna came in sometime later. She waited until she heard her sister's soft snores before she opened her eyes. What did she have to do to convince Scott they were meant to be together? And what part did Mitchell play? Despite what Scott had said, he was worried. And she was convinced the horrible man from Fort Hall was the reason why. Chapter 2. He watched her run, his heart torn in two. He regretted his callous treatment of her, but he only had so much self-control, and she felt so good in his arms. Her body melded to his, responding to his caresses instinctively, yet he knew her to be innocent. If only he was in a position to ask to court her. If he could offer her a stable home and a decent future, he would, but that wasn't in his power to provide. He wondered if it ever had been, but any chance was long forgotten now that Mitchell had turned up. His face hardened at the thought of the man who had ruined his life once before. He wasn't about to let him get away again. But first, he had a duty to take these travelers safely to Willamette Valley. Only once that was achieved would he deal with Mitchell. He turned his focus to the journey ahead. They should be able to replenish their supplies at Fort Boise, even though it was a bit late in the year. They may even be able to replace the 2 horses he had shot. They had gone lame shortly after Rick was nearly killed crossing the river at 3 Island Crossing. It was a bit late in the year for the trappers to be hanging around the fort, but he had a feeling his old friend Alberto might be there. He would be able to tell him more about Mitchell, particularly how he escaped the hanging. He mounted his horse and turned in the direction of the camp. He had to keep his distance from Becky. The chemistry between them was powerful, and although he wanted to believe he had the willpower to resist her, he wasn't so certain of his body. No woman had ever fascinated him for so long. Not even Kateri. Although he had loved her, their match had been arranged by the tribe. They had grown up together, so it seemed natural to get married. He would have stayed happily married if he had been given the choice. But the passion he shared with Becky had never been there between him and his wife. There was nothing for it but to always insist someone accompany them. A chaperone. Chapter 3. Becky studiously avoided Scott. If he came near their fire to talk to Pa, she wandered off to see Millie or call on someone else. "Why do you keep avoiding Captain Jones?" Joanna asked her, a curious look in her eyes. "I don't." "Yes, you do. You have gone from hanging on his every word to ignoring him. What type of game are you playing now?" "I am not playing any games, Joanna. Leave me alone." She wasn't going to cry in front of her twin. She had said enough about her love for Scott. She didn't want her sisters.